Hello and welcome to the Kelly and Wrighty Show. Yes, it's a bit cliched, but we really are at the business end of the season now.
4 games to go in the league and the European competitions are reaching a dramatic crescendo.
Chelsea booked their place in the Champions League final. They beat Real Madrid 2-0 at Stamford Bridge, 3-1 on aggregate. They join Manchester City, who'll make their first ever appearance in the final following their 4-1 aggregate win over PSG. So there's a bit of extra spice in the fixture between these two this weekend. City can reclaim the Premier League title with a win at the Etihad. And Chelsea, of course, are just trying to hold on to their top 4 spot. Joining us in the studio, some of our favourites, Andrew Cole and Darren Lewis. And we can start with that fantastic win for Chelsea. Here's Blues boss, Thomas Tuchel.
It was worth it every single day so far. I was part of amazing club from the first day. Like I said, I felt huge support from day one, and I'm very grateful to be at the sideline of this team. What another energetic performance, full of positive attitude, full of hunger. What a spirit to show in moments where we needed to suffer in first half, and what a reaction in second half. And to the heads were never down, heads were always up, even after these big chances that we missed. This is really huge, so I'm absolutely delighted with this spirit, and big credit and big congratulations to the team. For me, Bayern Munich throughout the last season and to the very, very end of this season, with Manchester City, they are the benchmark, and we wanted to close the gap to Man City in this one match in semi-final, which we did on a very impressive performance, and we will exactly need the same level of performance again, and we will arrive in Istanbul to win, not to be one of the participants. We want to arrive because we arrive with a clear focus to win it.
They're in such different positions, Manchester City and Chelsea, going into this, because at the start of the season, for Chelsea, it was about sort of ticking over, maybe pushing for the top 4. For City, the argument has been that, OK, they'll go for the Premier League title, but for this season to be a success, they have to add the Champions League to it. So for Chelsea, this could be a real boost to them going into the last few games.
Yes, very much so. And the manager's, the job he's done, the way he's come in, and he's kind of found a balance between the defence, midfield and attack. You know, they're not scoring as many goals as they maybe could do. And once Chelsea get a proper number 9, then they're probably going to be a very dangerous proposition. But when you look at the way Chelsea have come through, remember, under Frank, they were 9th for a bit. And the way this manager's come in, and he's not a manager that comes in with a philosophy. You know, when you look at his teams, Dortmund and PSG, he plays with the players he's got. He moves his players around in the system, and they make the system of what they're doing. And I think it's been unbelievable what he's done at Chelsea.
There were 6 points off top 4 when he came in, so not too far away, but he's got them into that position now and into the Champions League final. And the change, even in style, came about so quickly. We were used to saying, managers need a bit of time to get their ideas across. That hasn't been the case for Tuchel.
Yeah, I think you can tell with him, he knows what he wants. I don't think he takes any nonsense, and he makes his decision up on his formation and players that he wants. But to come in and to have done what he's done, wow. You have to say wow. If Lampard was still in charge, do I believe Chelsea would be in his position now? Most probably not. So that's just how well he's done with the same players. He's galvanised them, he's got them playing a different way, and he's got them getting results. And ultimately, that's what Chelsea wanted.
And we know they have all those creative players, and that's something we saw under Frank Lampard, as the guys have said. But the defensive organisation, 18 clean sheets in his time since he's been there. How much of that do you think is about bringing Rudiger back as a regular starter?
I think it's a hell of a lot to do with bringing him back. It's experience in that back line that has given him the platform to go on and win football matches. I think there are comparisons between Chelsea and City, similarities between Chelsea and City, in so much as both of their successful runs have started with very sound defensive platforms. Even when City weren't playing that well, they weren't great to watch, but they were winning goals by the odd goal just to get that confidence back. And then eventually, as that juggernaut started to progress, they started to express themselves even more. Very similar. I was at Tuchel's first game against Wolves. The players were obviously trying to impress, and these guys know what it's like in your first game trying to impress a new manager. But defensively, the emphasis has always been on being strong defensively in the Champions League, in the Premier League. I think what Tuchel has proven with this run, he's made a real statement to PSG about his abilities as a coach, because they let him go last Christmas. Happy Christmas. And also, he's shown that it isn't about getting superstar players like Mbappe and Neymar. It's about getting guys who are willing to work, getting guys who will interlock, if you like, as a team. And I think they've got every chance. Why this is going to be a fabulous final is because City are superb going forward. They've got lots of different points of attack. They've got a super striker in Aguero who actually doesn't get into their best team anymore, against a side that are absolutely granite tough defensively. So it's almost an irresistible force against the immovable object, and that's why it's going to be such a good final.
Yeah, why are they so difficult to break down? If you were playing up against them, what is it that makes them so tricky?
N'Golo Kante. By the way, the thing is obviously the experience of Thiago Silva as well, Rudiger.
See, right, you played in a defence. Adams, Bowl, Dixon, Keown. Experience counts for so much. You can have younger players, more mobile players, but when you've got guys who are used to playing alongside each other, guys who've been in tough moments before, that does. I mean, you up front with Bergkamp, and you had all your creative midfielders and whatever else, but those guys being able to work the linesmen, work as a unit, that makes a difference, I think.
It makes a massive difference. Even Aspilicueta being brought back in, we've seen him use Alonso every now and then, but I'm not saying for his defensive skills, but you look at Christensen's improved, Kurt Zuma's improved, and obviously Thiago Silva's experience. Then in front of them, you've got him using Kante in a way that you know that he can be used. We saw with Sarri, he played him out of position more on the right-hand side going forward. And we know that his best position for me is blotting out all that danger, and then springing attacks, because people for some reason underestimate his ability to progress the ball quickly to the guys that can do what they do. So defensively, they're very sound, but now he's also got someone in Kante who can do all that work where he stops the opposing team and then bam, gets it into the Mason Mounts, gets it into those guys, and then they're straight into opposing teams. So I think that, like Darren said, starting from a sound defensive basis, can't not mention the goalkeeper, Edouard Mendy, simply because the confidence he gives them is something that they're building everything on. So defence, then in front of the defence, the two holding midfielders, the pivots. And now the forwards now, like I said, if they can just go forward now, get that striker, because it doesn't look like it's going to be Tammy, it doesn't look like it's going to be Giroud, to finish off, then they are really going to cause problems, because they're so dangerous, they move the ball so quickly, and they've got everything in their team. Yeah,
I want to come back to Timo Werner and whether or not his second season might be different for him, whether you think that's the case. But just to stay on the point about Kante that you made, I think one of the really good quotes I read in terms of the analysis of the game was that Kante looks like he's everywhere. He isn't. He just knows where to be. So he's always in the right place at the right time.
He's a joke. He's seriously a joke. You were watching Chelsea last night. Both the goals have come from him. You know, breaking play up and then slipping someone else in. And people touched on it, they didn't believe he could do that. Well, I think he's proved he can do all that now. He's in the right position because he's cute enough to be in the right position. Because he's a top player. And I don't think he's given the credit that he should be given. You know, I think in his first game against Real, he was man of the match. And for me, last season, I thought he was man of the match as well. I know they're going to talk about Mount and players like that, but I thought Kante last night, top draw.
I wonder if one of the reasons that he might be less celebrated than he could be is because he is such a quiet character. He doesn't seem like somebody who seeks the light. No, but it's sometimes that he doesn't seem to want to attract attention to himself. It isn't something he looks for.
Yeah, I think he's an individual outside looking in. He just wants to play football and do the best he can do for his team. He's not into the razzmatazz, whereby in the modern day game, you know, everyone seems to be into the razzmatazz. But you look at him, he puts his performances on the football pitch. And the first goal, if you look, he didn't even celebrate. He set it up. You know, he's just gone 1-0 up in the Champions League semi-final. He's not celebrating. He knows, the game's just getting started.
Yeah, I think it's almost as though his role in that Leicester side was more celebrated than it is in the Chelsea side, even though they've consistently been I know Leicester won the league, but they've consistently been at a higher level.
Yeah, I think the reason for that is because he wasn't surrounded by as many quality players as he is in a Chelsea team. So it was easier for him to stand out in that side. But I think you're right. The guy's right. He's so selfless in the way that he goes about his business, covers so much ground. But the positioning, as you say, is all important because he is in the right place at the right time on many occasions. The background to him is that Chelsea actually rejected him initially because they out in that side. But I think you're right. The guy's right. He's so selfless in the way that he goes about his business, covers so much ground. But the positioning, as you say, is all important because he is in the right place at the right time on many occasions. The background is that Chelsea actually rejected him initially because they felt he was too small. So he ended up going from Cannes to Leicester for around about £5 million, which was a bargain in today's time. And they obviously ended up buying him back. Chelsea do that quite often for quite a lot of money. When he goes to Chelsea, suddenly he is this guy that everyone sees as the new Claude Makelele, if you like. But then, as Wright was saying, Sarri starts playing him in this right-sided position as more attack-minded, and Lampard did it for a time as well. But he's at his best. You could actually argue he is box-to-box, but he's at his best when he's protecting that back four. And I think he showed that last night. He is unparalleled in doing that, in performing that role. And I think he's got a lot of years to come in him as well, because he's very intelligent in the way he plays his game as well. And I think because of that, because of the lifestyle he doesn't lead, if you like, I think he will look after himself to be a real fixture in the Chelsea side for a few years to come.
Yeah, and it looks as though it's a Chelsea side that's set up for success. And it's interesting that it is one of the more experienced players in Kante who's kind of controlling that when there is so much young and promising talent in there, the likes of which we've seen. So they're creating all these chances. We've said lots about their creative players throughout the season. For Timo Werner, there's two schools of thought. One is he's getting into the positions, not finishing the chances, therefore he's a sort of busted flush. Then there's also the school of thought, which is he's getting into those positions, he's not finishing, but that will come because we've seen that he can do it, and you don't just lose that next season it may look different for him.
It might be different for him, but we saw with Leipzig, I think his best season, he's got 29 league goals, so he can go on that kind of run. And the chances, what you do see him miss, are chances where you think, well, he should be taking those with the calibre of striker he is. But what's been interesting is watching him, seeing him you could actually see him trying to make sure he's doing the right thing instead of just making it happen. And what was quite interesting when you heard his manager speak about him not scoring, his manager says, I don't even want to speak about it because I know he could score goals, and when that happens, he will start scoring goals, and then it will just happen. It just so happens that we've seen it before. A striker, you go on a run where, for some reason, you're just missing chances. Your confidence goes, but you have to still get into the position to score. And what will happen is, you have to say, with some of the chances I've seen him miss, Anne, they've been really, really easy chances. So you have to say, probably next season, he probably won't miss those chances. But when you look at what he does for the team from assisting and the pace and the way he stretches teams, it's invaluable at the minute. So once he does add the goals, it's going to be unbelievable for Chelsea.
Yeah, that's the thing. You two have both played in really successful partnerships. So can you see what he's doing for the rest of the team maybe a bit more easily? Because you'd be aware of, the importance of having somebody there to maybe drag defenders out of position. Yeah,
I can see every game watching him. He works his socks off. He's relentless, never gives up. As you say, chases a piece of paper. But I genuinely do believe where Chelsea want to get to, if they're going to try and win the Premier League next season, I think he will buy a centre forward. He might play him on the left next season because I think he's stronger off the left than as a centre forward. But
we'll take the responsibility of the goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's creative as well. If you look at him, he's creative. He's prepared to drop short, slip somebody else in. When you play off the left or right, you can do that a lot more. But when you're centre forward, you've got to be ruthless in there.
That's quite interesting. I like the idea of taking the responsibility of scoring them off. In which case, you might end up seeing more goals because it might switch something psychological.
Yeah, because then what happens is you're not kind of thinking, I've got to score because everybody's saying, I'm not finishing and I've come for this money. And, that kind of thing does happen. And Chelsea have had a history of having strikers that it's just not happened for whatever reason. They've come and he came as a guy who's going to score goals for them. Liverpool were courting him as well, remember? So when he came, when we started seeing him miss the chances, you're thinking, he's going through that Spurs, settling in because we know he can score. We've seen him score. But then, he started missing. But he hasn't stopped, like Andy said. He hasn't stopped creating. He hasn't stopped running. His teammates know they can rely on him because he still does the hard yards for them, which create chances.
I feel utterly unqualified to get involved in this conversation. Two legendary strikers here talking about the game. Sometimes you have to know when to shut up. But I wanted to ask this. If you look at Aubameyang at Arsenal, lots of people say that he shouldn't play off the left. He should play down the middle. And, I am, by the way, cards on the table, I think he's a second season man. He's in a new country. Not language, obviously, he speaks better English than us.
Extraordinary situation as well.
Extraordinary situation. I think that he's a goal scorer. And I think next season he will score goals.
And Chelsea have had two types of goal scorers who've come in. The big name, high profile ones who it hasn't worked out for, and the ones who develop in their second season.
Absolutely. And those ones, they get better. We've seen it time and again. But what I wonder is that this whole idea, you kind of partly answered it. Does he play off the left or through the middle? Because I think he clearly has the pace to get on the shoulder of the last defender and get away from him, particularly against teams who play a high line. So don't you give him his head down the middle in the same way that some people say Aubameyang at Arsenal shouldn't be off the left, he should be through the middle? And it's more a question than...
I think it's a case of where Chelsea try to get to. Am I prepared to wait another year, going through this? Or shall I buy a proven goal scorer now who I know is going to guarantee me 20, 25 goals because I want to win the Premier League next season? What do you want to do?
But does that mean that they have to change the way they play? Because Havertz likes to play...
It doesn't mean that, but it needs someone... I need someone who's going to get me goals. I think ultimately Manchester City are going to have to do it in the end. Manchester United have to do it in the end. Because when you try to win major runners, you have to have someone who's prepared, not prepared, has to give you 20, 25 goals.
Take the half chance.
You have to.
Who are those players out there at the moment? Has the role? I mean, we were talking about this actually before we came on air. Whether the role has
There's a couple
changed.
sitting there, Kelly.
Can you make the difference? Are you putting cards on the table? You say, is this a come and get me, please?
I'll come out of retirement. The thing is, you look at it and you think, are they out there? You have to, Harry Kane. I'm not saying Harry Kane's going to go to Chelsea or anything, but Harry Kane's out there. Erling Haaland's out there. And, just to name them two, Lukaku is out there. So...
buying back another striker, buying back another player.
Yeah, well, if that's if they're going to go, and what I like about Chelsea and what they win, they don't stay on this losing kind of mediocre kind of vibe for long. They get a manager out, they get them in. Chelsea all of a sudden they're revitalised, and then they go again like they're doing now. But like if Chelsea are going to get to that place, I'm totally in agreement with Andy there. They need the guy who's going to score the goal. So it doesn't make no difference where you have to move people around. If you buy Erling Haaland, he's being up front, and then that means Timo Werner plays the left. Kai Havertz will have to find somewhere, whether he plays the number 10, which apparently that's his best position. In fact, I've seen him when he played for Leverkusen in that position. You don't not buy somebody because, to fit him in. And it looks to me like this is the kind of manager. He gets the pieces and then he does what he does with them. And that is why all of a sudden you're starting to see people play unbelievably for Chelsea, because this manager gets the players playing right in a system what is suitable to the team, rather than him having a philosophy like Sarri, Villas-Boas, all those guys coming in with their philosophy of how they want to play. This guy builds a philosophy around the players he's got, and then they go and do it.
Just off the back of that, Kelly, I mean, what you can absolutely see them going out and buying a big striker. And people say, well, they couldn't afford a Kane. If you look at the Chelsea squad, there are so many fantastic players in that squad who will not get a game next season. You look at the midfielder, Billy Gilmore. He would walk into many teams outside of the top six, but he plays, They've got left backs, they've got right backs, they've got defenders, they've got Hakim Ziyech, who is in it. He'd walk into teams outside the top six. bit parts here and there, doesn't get a regular run in the side. Callum Hudson-Odoi can't get a regular run in the side. They can raise the money from selling players, and Chelsea are among the best players in the Premier League at being able to recoup huge sums of money for the players that they sell. So you could see them selling players to fund a move for a Harry Kane to get in there. And again, given the way you guys are talking, he doesn't really need to do the work he does at Spurs, where he drops deep to let other people run in behind. He can just get into the box and allow the ball to come across the 6-yard box, and he'll score 20,
But you say that, Dan. I think Harry does that for a reason. I think when you're picking up certain injuries and you become a yard slower, you do drop that little bit deeper, because you know what you used to do, I can't actually do that anymore.
Right.
You know, he's intelligent enough to do it now, to know that.
But don't you have to change your game? So, for example, you went from Newcastle to Manchester United. Did you have to change your game because you knew, or did you think it's almost a similar situation where you got better players? You had Giggs on one side, Beckham on the other, so you know you're going to be getting balls across the box.
I think if he does move, the team will no longer be built around him. The Tottenham team is basically built around him. I think once he moves, he will change his game, because he knows the team's not his team anymore, and he'll have to fit into that team just like everybody else has to.
I think that idea of him having changed his game because of the changes in him physically is a really interesting one, because when we're talking about Harry Kane potentially going to Manchester City, has been the sort of longer running saga, potentially Manchester United he's been linked with. Maybe now we're talking about him in terms of a Chelsea striker. Are they buying the Harry Kane that maybe we have the image of in our head, or is it a different Harry Kane
it's a
that
different
they'd be
one.
getting?
It's definitely a different one. As every year comes, as we know, we get older, a little bit slower. When you keep picking up the same injury as well, that takes a lot out of you. The constant injury, the constant ankle injury every year. Harry misses, 2 months a season? That takes its toll. It definitely takes its toll. You can speak to anyone. If it's the same injury, it'll catch up with you.